Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Carson Fox with another episode of the West Virginia 2023 football season. Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. And tonight we are recapping what was an incredible Saturday in Fort Worth as the West Virginia Mountaineers upended the TCU Horned Frogs 24-21, beating TCU for the fourth time in the last 5 contests, with 3 of them coming on the road. But this meant so much more than that. So I would like to start off this program by summarizing the game in 90 seconds or fewer for someone who perhaps didn't watch it from start to finish, or I don't know, maybe you just had some sort of crazy Saturday in which you were unconscious or in a coma or something. If you missed this game, let me kind of break it down for you in about 90 seconds, because then I want to go back and I want to highlight some of the big points, highlight some of the big takeaways from this one, and that's what can serve really for this recap and my analysis of it, because there's really a lot that could be talked about in a 24-21 game, with so many different just key points of that. So much could have changed if just one or two things like here or there happened. It was like the butterfly effect, I felt like, on Saturday in Fort Worth. So a lot of things broke the way that they needed to for West Virginia. So let me break it down for you as quick as I can. In the first half, it looked and felt much like the Penn State game in that TCU hit some big plays, including a 59-yard catch and run by wide receiver J.P. Richardson on TCU's first offensive series. Now, WVU held up okay offensively, but mightily struggled to move the ball through the air once again, and didn't have very many running lanes for CJ Donaldson to run through and Garrett Greene. Both TCU and West Virginia missed out on points it should have, and TCU took a 7-point advantage into the half after a 36-yard catch and run by Dylan Wright with under 30 seconds to play in the second quarter, as TCU went into the half up 21-14. So remember that number. I said the final, 21, so TCU did not score from there. So this is where the game completely changed, and West Virginia did to TCU what TCU did the 2 previous weeks against SMU and Houston. WVU's defense just put the clamps down on TCU's offense. I don't know what happened, what Michael's secret stuff they were drinking at halftime, what defensive adjustments, could they see either on film or in the moment. It completely changed in the third quarter. So for the next 20 minutes of the game, hold on. Before that, I'll pause. For an hour and a half, West Virginia didn't have a completion through the air. So in actual live minutes, not game minutes, but actual 20 minutes of game minutes through the third and fourth quarters, TCU had total offensive yards production of 11 yards. It was at one point in time they had 1 positive yard through the third quarter. They opened up their fourth quarter drive, 5 plays going 10 yards. So 11 yards of total offense. That was the whole key. West Virginia missed out on points twice by going for it on fourth down in TCU territory, including late in the game when it appeared as if Hudson Clement had a 24-yard catch and run for a touchdown that was really electrifying, but he was called down, unfortunately, he was called a touchdown on the field. The officials reviewed it, and they determined that just ever so slightly his knee pad touched the ground, made a divot, as they said about 60 times, at the TCU 5. WVU took 4 rushing cracks at the end zone and came up empty, unfortunately, on TCU's defense. So no points. But WVU finally took the lead with 9 minutes and 30 seconds left to play in the fourth quarter when kicker Michael Hayes drilled a 49-yarder. And the WVU special teams unit came up huge, were really the players of the game, with 2 blocked field goals in the game's final 9 minutes, and that's how the Mountaineers came out victorious. So holding TCU scoreless in the second half could have won this game potentially, I would think, around 7 to 10 points, or 6 to maybe 9 points, with a couple of more field goals instead of those fourth quarter turnover on downs. Now TCU could have had 3 more points at least in the first half potentially. Missed kick that caught because of an intentional grounding on Chandler Morris. They were pushed back an extra 5 yards, and their kicker couldn't hit it from long range. But then West Virginia could have also had another 3 points to their credit in the first half when Nick Malone false started right before a field goal in which Michael Hayes drilled a 53-yarder. So this game could have been higher scoring than the final scoreboard showed, but both teams were aggressive, more so West Virginia offensively, but that's what we get. Thankfully, there was just one more field goal that West Virginia had that TCU didn't, and that's the ball game. So a game that was a 13-point spread, West Virginia comes out and covers. So how about that? Good teams win. Great teams cover. The Mountaineers did that. But I want to talk about my first point. It's not the number one point. The number one point I'll talk about second. But unbelievable, like what you find out after in the post-game press conference was the quarterback controversy throughout the week that we talked about. Not necessarily in terms of is Garrett Greene healthy. It was Nico Marchiol, unfortunately, that wasn't healthy come Thursday. That Garrett Greene was apparently just 75% come Tuesday at practice. And Neil Brown pretty much just said, you're not playing, or, I don't want you to risk it with an upcoming, 10 days to prepare before Houston, so we can give you about 2 full weeks to nurse that ankle and get healthy. But then what do you know, late in the practice on Wednesday, Nico Marchiol rolls his ankle, forcing Garrett Greene to have to go out there and give it a go during the walkthrough to get some passes, to get some practice in. I don't know really what form on Thursday. Flew out with the team on Friday. I'm sure they did some sort of, either passing at the outside in the hotel parking lot, or I don't know, a local high school field. I'm not really sure what they did Friday or even Saturday leading up to Saturday evening when the game was played. But so really it was a 72-hour window, it seemed like, where West Virginia really had 2 quarterbacks who weren't 100% to play. So, wow. Speaking of Garrett Greene, I want to talk about him. There was good and bad in this contest for GG6. I thought, number one, what was super important with Garrett Greene in this game was his wheels. Even though he was playing on a bum ankle, he came out there and gave it a go. And what do you know, scoring WVU's first touchdown of the game, a 35-yard run for a touchdown. And that was the kind of play that West Virginia has not had since Pat White graduated. That is the kind of play that's so fun about college football, is if you can find a mobile quarterback who has the kind of wheels like Garrett Greene can escape the pocket when a play breaks down and bust it open for a big play. So that was huge. Will Grier, I'll give him a lot of credit in 2017, was a really nice runner. And even Skylar Howard to a point. I mean, what did he rush for over 600 yards or something in 2016? It was he was a great power guy, but not as fast as Greene. Not as fast. Clint Trickett, not that kind of guy. Geno Smith would run when he absolutely had to in 2011 and 2012. Long strider who could pick you up. Runs outside the pocket, but on either quarterback design runs, reminded me a lot of like a Johnny Manziel type out there. That was incredible. He was great improvising in this game, especially when he didn't see wide receivers open downfield and there wasn't a lot of separation created at times. 12 rushes for 80 yards on the night with 2 rushing touchdowns. Garrett Greene doing it, not 100% healthy in there. Wow, what a game changer. I thought at times passing the ball, he was a little off with his passes, perhaps due to only having that one practice opportunity and the bum ankle, and TCU does have a very tough defense, not necessarily through the air, as we said, but I really think that number was inflated again by the Colorado game. They weren't as bad through the air pass defense as I really thought. Opportunistic and tough, and especially in the front 7. So not a lot of running room. And he was feeling a lot of pressure in front of him, but moved around the pocket really well. I thought his pocket presence was very good, especially later in the game. Now, sometimes his receivers didn't help him out. I remember early on in the game, I was really upset when Preston Fox had a wide open crossing route across the field near the sideline. Greene hits him square and about the face mask, hits him through the hands. I know Greene threw his fastball out there, but you're a receiver. It is your position to catch the football. So just at times, I don't think his receivers necessarily helped him out, not getting a ton of separation either. But sometimes he was bailed out by his receivers. I can think of a Cole Taylor catch where Taylor had to completely come back to catch a ball on 3rd and 8 in the third quarter. And then E.J. Horton coming up with a huge catch, his first catch as a Mountaineer in the fourth quarter, both on and I think his was also on 3rd down. So, sometimes he had absolutely nowhere to throw the ball, so he just ran, and that was awesome. I mean, that's what makes him great, to have that awareness. If he doesn't see somebody open, to go and make a play, and he can still be a playmaker. So it was a little bit of everything. I still would say that this more so than about Greene as a passer being critical, I would still say that this wide receiver room needs to start to, figure some things out. Need to find some leaders, need to find some guys who you can contribute and rely on. And now you're down 2 more receivers. So bye-bye Cortez Bram and Jeremiah Aaron. Good riddance. That was your opportunity, especially for you, Bram, coming into the season as a, projected, whatever you want to call it, X receiver, Y receiver, their number 2 receiver. But bye-bye to me first players who had opportunities here at a Power 5 level and just weren't good enough team players to go out there and be somebody for this team. So I'm also wondering, where is Jashawn Polk? Another game we're not seeing Jashawn Polk. Is he another transfer portal player? Noah Massey, what was the point of bringing him onto the team if he's not going to play? I know, or maybe he's friends with the wide receivers coach because he's like a 5th or 6th year college player. So, maybe there's a connection there, and that was the only reason why you bring him onto the team. But this receiving room is just giving me headaches. I'm sure a lot of you others out there are feeling the same way. It's like, can we count on 1 guy? Can we count on 2 guys? So I'm just feeling it there. I hope if you're feeling the same way, leave a comment on this page. Let me know. What do you see to this wide receiver room moving forward? The other thing I'll say about Greene, kind of my last point, is just he's an incredibly tough player. I mean, I was loving it when he was going at 3 TCU defenders. I know Nick Malone was trying to just get him off the field to not fight, but I mean, you didn't see that. And I know he led by example. He was quiet. JT Daniels didn't do that. Jared Deggy would have folded like a wet napkin. Or even Austin Kendall to an extent. I mean, Garrett Greene will take on anybody, and he does not care. He will fight till he has his last breath. That's just embodying Mountaineer football. Love what I'm seeing out of Garrett Greene in that regard. No fear. I think he was just more so upset with himself, given the way that the offense was rolling. So he just wanted to take it out on these TCU guys, and they wanted to shove it back in his face, and he was not taking it. So I think that lit a fire under him, and I love when when a match is lit under Garrett Greene. So looked much better in the second half passing, and once he got in rhythm with his wide receivers, I remember on 2 completions of over 10 yards back-to-back to Hudson Clement. I mean, he just started ripping the ball, and that's what I hope that we can see from Greene moving forward. Hopefully he gets healthy on that ankle, that we can start to see this passing attack develop, because you can see I thought on that drive specifically, in which West Virginia didn't end up getting points out of, but you could see the kind of potential that this offense could have when it's clicking. So hopefully there's just more good things as this wide receiving room starts to figure itself out. How does Traylon Ray get involved? How does Rodney Gallagher get involved? I think we're going to see more out of E.J. Horton, at least, from what Neil Brown said in last week's Texas Tech post-game press conference. So, and Cole Taylor, he was missing in action, what it seemed like in the first half, but then you saw a lot of Traylon Davis, it seemed like, in the first half, but then in the second half he came out and again had that huge catch on 3rd down. So he is vitally important for this offense. I just know he is. But let's talk about what made this game, and this is the number 1 point for this in analyzing this game was the adjustments in the second half by this defense. I was so impressed by the rotations by this defensive line to keep them fresh. And, a hot night, over 80 degrees down there in Texas. And these guys played like their heads were on fire. Like you just lit a match in the Texas desert and you just lit the desert all on fire. It was impressive. To me, Derwaje, I think, wow, really got to give him a lot of credit. And Mike Lockhart, too. Both guys coming up with 1.5 tackles for loss on the night, getting a lot of pressure. Jarrett Bartlett, Tyron Bradley each having a sack. They were getting a huge rush, it seemed like, up the middle, breaking through the pocket to force Chandler Morris to have to escape the pocket. And when he would do so, he was either, throwing it, he was just more erratic when he wasn't playing set from within the pocket. So he was erratic with his throws, throwing a lot more incompletions than he did in the first half. Or he was kind of throwing like a check down route, it seemed like, in which a West Virginia player was just all over it and made some really nice one-on-one tackles in the second half as opposed to the first half. Lee Koba, what can you say about that guy? Once again, playing like a guy who wants to be an all-league player by the end of the season. 11 tackles, had a sack and a pass defense. And then Hershey McLaurin really played with his hair on fire out there. He was a man possessed, I would say. 7 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 passes defense, and maybe like my new favorite defender on this team. I'm so sad that we only get him for 1 year to be a fan of him, but I mean, wow, I'm really, really impressed with Beanie Bishop. I don't know if you feel the same way as I do, but I mean, since when has West Virginia had a lockdown number 1 corner as good as him? I mean, I like Drashawn Miller and I like Nick Troy Fortune in 2020. I mean, that combo was a talented combo in 2020. I'm not going to take anything away from those guys. But I mean, maybe Keith Washington in 2018. I think Beanie Bishop's better than him. Any of the guys that West Virginia's had over the last since that 2020 defense. But then I'm going to have to go back even further, maybe to 2016 with his name escapes me, playing for the Green Bay Packers. Oh, if you say it, you know who I'm talking about. 3rd round pick. He had awesome interceptions last year. The name just completely escapes me from that 2016 defense, but that's probably the best cornerback that West Virginia's had, or Beanie Bishop's the best cornerback that West Virginia's had since him. So I love what he's doing out there. And then Malachi Ruffin, what can you say about that guy on the other side? Not letting anyone get behind him, running stride for stride with receivers down the field. He has been a complete breath of fresh air. I really want to know what he did this past off season, if he really took that Oklahoma State game play in which he called an incompletion and then gave up a 50 or 60-yard pass play to heart, because he's looking like a guy out there who's not a former walk-on by any stretch of the imagination, looking like a guy who's a savvy veteran out there. So love having him at the second cornerback position. This defense and holding Imani Bailey, who already had 3 100-plus yard rushing games to his total for the year, only had 55 yards on 19 carries in this game. But despite Morris throwing for 298 yards and 2 touchdowns, most of that damage came in the first half. He held Morris in check in the second half. Just really unreal defense. The thing I want to say, though, about defense, kind of skipping my notes here, what was frustrating, though, and I want to hear if you felt the same way, was the near interceptions. West Virginia and TCU had them in this game, but for West Virginia, I think you dropped 4 interceptions. Oh, it was just absolutely frustrating. Lee Koba and Jarrett Bartlett, the one play in the first half where they smacked into each other when they both dove for it, that was an interceptable ball. Koba missed another one with 30 seconds before halftime on a 3rd and 2 play, only then for Morris on his next play to find an open Dylan Wright across the field for 30 yards and gave TCU a 7-point lead going into the half. That just was like, oh, you just wanted to pull your hair out. You're like, oh my gosh, it didn't feel like it in the moment. that near interception, and then they score. So it's like, oh my gosh, just the little things, little details. What's his name? McLaurin dropped one in the third quarter. Bishop dropped one. Well, I think Bishop's was a little more difficult than McLaurin's because it ricocheted off the receiver's hand. But I mean, 4 near interceptions in this game, and West Virginia didn't get one of them. I thought West Virginia was bailed out by the review process. And in real time watching it, the interception in the first quarter by Bud Clark when he stepped in front of the Rodney Gallagher out route, I thought it hit the ground. I thought he got his paws on it, but yeah, he definitely used the ground to corral it in. I'm glad that the review process came away and said that was an incompletion, because at that point TCU had scored 7, could have gone up 14. Who knows what happens? Again, little things in this game, butterfly effect, which could have made it a completely different game. One of those 4 interceptions goes West Virginia's way. I'm thinking especially the one in the first half could have been a totally, completely different contest. So talking about special teams, I mean, wow. Not just the 2 blocked field goals. I know the defense in the third quarter, I said, was the highlight. If I'm writing an article for this game, my lead is all about the defense that West Virginia played in the third quarter. But also, as a part of that, are those 2 blocked field goals. Holy crap, were they important. The officials call that Morris wasn't down. That really ticked me off, too, is how TCU had a closer attempt with the second field goal block when Morris was sacked. I think it was Koba or no, it was Sean Martin who was on him, and he makes this Neo from the Matrix type throw behind his back. He was down. His leg was down. How did you not? You called it on the field. If it has to be indisputable evidence to overturn the call, how in the world at that, that slowed down of a frame rate even, that you can determine that his knee was up? It had a lot of same signs, I feel like, as like the Bryce Ford Wheaton play against Iowa State in 2021. It was just like, there's no way. There's no physically possible way he gets tackled, rolled over on his back and throws. And even if he does do that, that's intentional grounding. You're within the pocket and you're throwing to absolutely nobody, so that should have cost TCU 5 yards. Even if it was, I'm still saying it was a sack. Should have been a sack. But instead, they didn't get either. So that was just a really, really mind-blowingly bad call by the officials on that one that thankfully didn't end up hurting West Virginia. But I was just flipping out whenever that happened. But another positive for West Virginia, and what more can you say about this guy really being an unsung hero for this team? Ollie Straw, averaging 46 yards per punt and pinned TCU inside its own 23 times. Wow. Preston Fox had 2 punt returns, each over 15 yards, setting up West Virginia with important positive field position. So he's got that punt returner position locked down. He's really grown in that area, and he deserves a lot of credit in that position. I think he, put that Duquesne game punt return to bed, like off in distant memory, like totally trust Preston Fox at that punt return position, so that was great. And then what can you say more about Michael Hayes? What a find in the transfer portal. What a guy. Oh, I really, really like this kid. I mean, not only did he make the game-winning field goal, but the other one from 53 yards before halftime that unfortunately was negated because of Nick Malone's false start, which was really, really ticky-tack. I mean, yes, I saw him twitch on the replay. I saw him twitch. But, I mean, come on. And then from 53 yards, he boots it, nailed it. Ice in his veins, but unfortunately the second attempt was just a little too long outside of his range. But, wow, got to give him a lot of credit. Michael Hayes, what a find at kicker. I really trust him. I really like him as our kicker. So one of the things I want to talk about is something I was watching a lot of. I was following Twitter, as I usually do, or for games that I watch at home on television. If it's a game that I'm at, I'm usually just consumed with the entire in-game experience, so I rarely check my phone. But I was following on social media throughout much of this game, just honestly to calm my nerves, it felt like, for how just stressful this game was. And one of the things I really didn't like seeing from a lot of Mountaineer fans out there was questioning CJ Donaldson. I just stop. Just really stop. I know at 22 carries for 61 yards and now his 4th rushing touchdown on the season might feel a little low for him. But here's what I'll say. Neil Brown is very aware of that statistic, in which I think WVU is something like 21-4 whenever it rushes for 100 yards or a game, and especially if they hit 200 yards, I think they're perfect under Brown. So, TCU had the 16th rush defense in the country, and they were stout. They were stout up front, and I was really impressed with their linebackers, Hodge and Hodges. But still, Brown was going to run against this TCU defense. There was with the way that the offense was going and not figuring it out through the pass. He figured, we got to play game control. We got to play this for the long 4 quarters and wear this TCU defense out, and it was a good move. Unfortunately, it just killed CJ Donaldson's yards per carry average. They were not respecting WVU's downfield passing game at all. So there was nowhere for him to run. I don't understand what people didn't get about that. Is there was nowhere for him to go. He can push as hard as he can. He can. This line is is an awesome line, but there's nowhere to go. So why are you attacking him or calling him slow or saying he doesn't have his burst or, fans want him to be. And I get it because he is so effective north and south, but he's not the same running back that Letty Brown is. He's not. Letty Brown never saw a hole. He always he would create his own holes. He would run through people, either his own players or the other players, to create a hole and pick up positive yardage. CJ Donaldson, for as big as he is, he likes to run more so like a Le'Veon Bell, in which he's going to wait and wait until a hole break opens up, then he's going to hit it. And that's what he's able to do to get you 9, 14 or more and be off. And that's what makes him so great. It just was not to be had in this contest. And to be honest with you, it wasn't there against Texas Tech, and for a lot of the game, it wasn't there against Pitt, even though Pitt's in the toilet. It's just tough sledding right now, even how good this offensive line is, even though you also have the threat of Garrett Greene to run, that teams know that he is West Virginia's best player. They're loading up the box. They're daring all of these other players around Donaldson to beat them. They don't want – he's like an awesome three-point shooter or, the team's best player in basketball. So – I just think if you get it, I don't think it was a bad decision to go to Jaheim White later in the game just to give a different look. Now Jaheim White likes to just one cut and go, so it was a different type of vibe. It was a different type of running style, and he's fast. He's really fast, so it was great to get him in there. A different change of pace. I wondered where Jalen Anderson was in this game. We only saw one play with Justin Johnson, so I wonder what's going on in that running back room. To be honest with you. What the rotations are looking like. Why didn't we see more Anderson in this contest? But and the other thing is Donaldson's 1 carry away from matching his number of carries for all of 2022. So he's taken on a bigger workload than what he had a year ago. Still, again, relatively new to the running back position, even though, in his second year, awesome physical specimen. He's an awesome running back. So I think these next 10 days are going to be great for him. Get him healthy. Get him off his feet. Get him. But just I think that's what, if this offense is able to create some sort of a downfield passing attack to take the pressure off Donaldson, you're going to start to see him become the player that we know and love. And it's not because of his own abilities, and it's not because of what he's trying to do. He has that same burst, is what I mean to say. He's not putting on weight or anything and just looking slow. He just has that different style of rushing that unfortunately just isn't work and isn't being complemented, I think, at times with the play calls. I'm thinking especially of that series inside the 5 that West Virginia tried 4 cracks at the end zone and just couldn't get him into the end, couldn't get him in somehow. So that's just going to have to be some. And again, It was TCU, has a really good rush defense. So you got to keep all of these things into consideration. I think this was an aberration. I think that there are better days to come for CJ Donaldson down the stretch for this season. So stop all of the hate against CJ Donaldson. Do not question the man. He's our best player. The other thing really upsetting about this game was the injuries. Obviously, the Aubrey Burks one was scary. Wasn't really an apparent injury at the moment in real time, but I mean, he hit the punter really hard, or punt returner, I'm sorry, really hard, and then just collapsed. So if it was his neck, because taking him off on a stretcher, they had him in like the neck brace, to keep his head locked in position. For if it was his back, or if it was a concussion, I have no idea. It hasn't been much of a report there just yet on what exactly happened to Aubrey Burks and what's the extent of the injury. Now, this is one, and I again, taking it in from a football perspective, not from a personal perspective, but West Virginia, with having guys like a Hershey McLaurin step up, with an Anthony Wilson step up, Marcus Floyd getting back up in there and fully healthy, West Virginia could get through the Aubrey Burks injury in this contest. But obviously, you don't want anything serious to happen to the boy, and you don't want anything long-term damage. You'd like to get him back if possible. We'll see what to the extent of what the injury is, but maybe we see Aubrey Burks back this season. Don't know just yet. Don't know. The one that's really devastating, too, not only because of the severity of the injury, but how great he's been playing and how just valuable to this defense he is Trey Lathan. I think they didn't show the replay. They said it was too ugly, but I heard it was a broken leg. So had surgery down there in Fort Worth. So thanks to the awesome medical team there for taking care of our two defensive players. So thank you. Appreciate that. But it's just sad that Lathan's probably done for the year. I don't know what West Virginia will do at that weak side linebacker position. Do they potentially go to more McLaurin like they did in the TCU game? Do they bring back Lance Dixon to that position and try that out again? Jairo Favaris was the number 2 player in camp at that position. Does he get the nod at the starting position for that? So it's just, it's really a shame that you lose Lathan, given how great he was coming on for this year as a redshirt freshman. So hopefully he makes a full recovery back to come back really, really strong for 2024. So also going down, I don't know the extent to these injuries, whether they were just some little bit of wear and tear. But that dumbass Demonic Williams cut blocking into Tomas Remack, and also I heard that Wyatt Milam went down in this game. So a kid should have got ejected, I felt like, or someone should have just ripped his head off, to just put it into their own hands. He was I did not like that guy, what he was stomping around, acting like an idiot. So I wish West Virginia could have. I guess the win is the retribution ultimately at the end of the day, but wanted to get him back for chop blocking a couple of West Virginia's guys. And then obviously don't know to the extent of Marchial's injuries or if he'll be ready to go potentially for Houston, and how does Garrett Greene's foot feel after that game. So I don't think this bye week could have come at a better time. But first, losing Montre Miller, now Lathan, this was a game that, getting the win, West Virginia really paid the price, unfortunately, with the injury situation. So hopefully West Virginia can bounce back as a team, get healthy during the bye week to take on this next 7-game stretch of the season. So I'm glad Ollie Straw didn't hurt himself badly in that Duquesne game. I know I was worried about him whenever he tweaked his foot in that contest week 2, but seems like nothing at this point in time. So my last point to conclude this video, I know I'm over 30 minutes now, is this the game that we can point to as when the climb started? Oh my gosh, I asked the question. Holy moly, it's 5 years in the making. Is this really the climb? Is this it? So here's what I'll say to that question directly and not beat around the bush, is maybe. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But with the way West Virginia's schedule develops down the stretch, if you look at it and the way that these Big 12 teams have been playing these last few weeks, Central Florida blowing a 35-10 lead to Baylor, BYU winning at home, ugly really, against Cincinnati, putting them in their place. Oklahoma State is a mess. Texas Tech got a win over Houston, putting them in the bottom barrel of the conference. So looking at this upcoming schedule with these next 3 games of Houston, Oklahoma State, and then UCF, before you come home for BYU, who's 4-1 at least right now. This could be the month of October isn't been very friendly to West Virginia in the past, it seems like, but this is a golden opportunity to position yourself up to potentially clash with Oklahoma in Week 11 for a spot in the Big 12 championship game. I don't want to jinx it. I'm just going to put it out there as like, wow. They call this, and I've heard this at my job, like goal, stretch goal, super stretch goal. I would consider that to be a super stretch goal of getting to the Big 12 championship game. But holy crap, like, wow, given the way that you've gotten to 4-1. I cannot believe that this team is 4-1 and Pitt's 1-4, by the way, which is almost just as awesome. But wow, if you would have told me that back in July that West Virginia would start out 4-1, I'd have said, what? Are you crazy? I mean, I'll take 3-2. I will really take 3-2, but to get to 4-1, wow. I mean, this is great. This is such a great feeling. I hope you're feeling it out there, Mountaineer Nation, that we can, potentially put the 2019 to 2022 era behind us and turn a page, a new chapter with Neil Brown at the helm of this program. But so why I'm feeling a little more optimistic, and I hate to use that word because it's like, whoa, it's almost taboo, West Virginia fan feeling optimistic, is West Virginia has this chip on its shoulder that it's using for motivation, and that's exactly what so many of championship-worthy teams of West Virginia has done over the last 25 years. That's what you do as a Mountaineer team that goes on to greater heights and bigger glories. You have this chip, and it's not something that's manufactured. It's real. It's West, and I've written this as an article back at it's now West Virginia Sports Illustrated, but previously WV Nation. I wrote this article years ago that was WVU is so much better as a David rather than as a Goliath. So don't rank them. I'm okay that West Virginia is not in the top 25 right now. I'm okay if they continue for the next few weeks and continue to win. And don't get ranked. That's totally fine. Continue to use this us against the world attitude that the media and people just did not buy into this team. The rallying cry, it seems like they have 14. Keep continuing to prove people wrong, because that's what's the best motivation, it seems like, for this program over the last 25 years. And the other, to pair that together with having that, Excalibur is the chip on your shoulder of why you're this underdog against the world, is you're starting to finally see an identity develop. And you're like, what do you mean, Carson? This team's looked like trash offensively now for 5 games, except even, take out the Duquesne game. Well, and I know this because in my last video from last week, I talked about how West Virginia is such a offensively motivated fan base. We like good offense, but it's the complete opposite. It's everything else but the offense. You look at it, it's defense. It's defense. That's what is winning this team games. And also, they're non-penalized. There was only 2 penalties against West Virginia in this game for 10 yards. I know the Nick Malone one was really costly at the time. It felt like in the moment, missing out on 3 points. But I mean, wow, that they're not beating themselves. I know you probably felt that way on the very first series when West Virginia had to call a timeout on 3rd down. And you're like, here we go again. West Virginia burning timeouts that it would really like to have in pivotal sets, and within 2 minutes of a half or at the end of the game. But they're getting better with that. They're getting better with that. They're getting better with the penalties. You're not beating themselves. You're controlling clock, which I talked about all off season, how that would be pivotal for this team with this offensive line. And we didn't know at that point in time how this defense was going to do. And then you're going to continue to run the ball, even against a team that's top 20 in the country in rush defense, you can still do that and win ball games. Wow. And then great special teams play. Your kickoffs, your kick return. I know we haven't seen a whole lot of that this year, but your punt returns marginally improved. Your punting's great with Ollie Straw. You got a solid kicker in Michael Hayes. So you'll see what you get offensively. And you keep forgetting that these are guys who are really starting for their first year at the helm of this program. And Garrett Greene and Nico Markey all playing better, it seems like, in a 1-2 kind of combo than really having these clearly defined starter backup roles. Like they're playing for each other. So this is an anti-Dana Holgorsen model, and like that was what we were so accustomed to for years was West Virginia in this conference trying to fight fire with fire, try and score 50 points and play no defense, play exactly the way Dana Holgorsen teams. Now you have enough evidence from his Oklahoma State days and now his Houston coaching days. I know he was an OC back then at Oklahoma State, but that's like everything else did not mean a damn to Dana Holgorsen. He did not care about all of these finer point details that could win you ball games, and that's why West Virginia was average to above average at times during his tenure. I know he had more wins, but I mean, it really took them to get to the Will Grier eras till it seemed like you had any sort of semblance of expectations, because you blew it in 2012. It took a rebuild through 2013 to get to a 20. I don't want to go down this road and talk about all that. But what I mean to say is Neal Brown's winning it differently. It's not as exciting. If you want to call it winning ugly, and we have that plastered on T-shirts, like, I don't care. It still would feel nice to have this awesome offense, but at the end of the day, if you win, I'm ecstatic. I'm over the moon. So maybe I am wrong on that note that West Virginia fans just want to win. It doesn't really matter how so. So I would say to anybody who's not necessarily jumping on the bandwagon, Kirk Herbstreit, you jerk. I can't stand, like, that is just finally taking off the mask of Kirk Herbstreit, of this battle between he and Pat McAfee. It's cute. It's really pretentious. It's very it's just you're taking off the mask and finding the dark side of really how Kirk Herbstreit feels. He's been this Big Ten elitist for 20 years who, I don't know why he has this axe to grind against West Virginia. I don't know if it's the proximity between Morgantown and Columbus, but he's the perfect figurehead of the national media type who would rather West Virginia just not exist. Who West Virginia has to fight so damn hard to cut against the grain, to be a disruptor, to, the narrative 2 weeks ago was all about Texas Tech, and then this week it was all about TCU, and boom, what do you know? West Virginia beat them both. So enjoy that taste, Kirk Herbstreit. I hope you have to pay out miserably to Pat McAfee when West Virginia gets to its 5th win. So, again, but I don't want to go down. All right, so what I would say again, sorry, I got off on a little bit of a tangent there. Mountaineer fan, not complaining about this win. If you didn't feel so good about the Pitt win, if you didn't feel so good about the Texas Tech win, you won as a 13-point underdog on the road against the defending national finalists who have an above average to great offense in which your quarterbacks were hurt all week. Like, just think about that. West Virginia did that. Be happy. Enjoy it. Like, wow, West Virginia is 4-1. It's incredible. It's a great feeling. I know it's almost like, what, should we feel good about winning again? Like, is 2018 really that far away? Like, that you don't remember of having a team with being a team with expectations and trying to win? Like, I know that the transfer portal and NIL, like, everything through 2021 and 2022 has been rough, but, like, okay, now we're winning again. This is great. I don't want to go down the road of what this means for Neal Brown's job, because there's still, 55 to 60% of the season still just left. I don't want to talk about what this means for recruiting or national perception and blah, blah, blah. But again, this should kill any of the doom and gloom in Mountaineer Nation that 2023 is a continuation of a paltry 2022. There is reason for hope. There is reason for optimism. Like I said, if West Virginia could have got to this 5-game stretch at least 3-2 or better, they are well on their way toward achieving their goal. Unspoken or spoken, I'm telling you, this is the goal. It's only been done 3 times during West Virginia being in the Big 12, of getting to 8 wins. So you're halfway there already. Incredible. With your only loss being week 1 on the road against a Penn State team that may be in the college football playoff at the end of the year. So that game, for whatever it's worth, will be more and more Sorry, it's my dog upstairs if you heard that. So just happy. Relish this for the next 10 days as we await Houston in the first ever matchup against Dana Holgorsen. So enjoy it. West Virginia winning 24-21. If you like this content, subscribe to my channel. Love to have you follow the channel. Leave some comments here on Twitter, and I'll be back next week to talk about the bye week and looking ahead. So thanks for tuning in. I know this was a long one. Enjoy it. Hail West Virginia. Let's go. Take care.